I'm sitting here in a field of garlic mustard, and in this video I'm going to tell you everything there is to know about garlic mustard and what you should do to control it. It's really important that every gardener knows about this plant. Now I have to apologize. My friend here in the trees keeps singing, and I think you'll probably hear it. You'll just have to put up with him. So garlic mustard is an invasive weed that we have to try to control. It's native to Europe, but it's in North America and it's spreading everywhere, and it's spreading really quickly. If we don't control it, it will take over all of our natural wildlife areas. It's also a problem in the garden, and I've seen gardens quite full with this stuff now because the people don't recognize what it is. So I'm going to help you identify it, and I'm going to show you what to do to get rid of it. One of the big problems with this plant is that it's allelopathic. That means that it makes chemicals and puts those into the soil around the plant. And those are toxic to other plants. It keeps other plants from growing. It controls its competition with these chemicals. This is chemical warfare. And this plant, garlic mustard, is winning the war. It will get rid of all of your native plants. So let's control this. Whenever I'm dealing with pests, and they could be insect pests or plant pests, I want to know about the insect or plant that's involved. Don't just ask the question, what should I do? Ask the question, how does this organism grow? What is the biology of this organism? What is its life cycle? Life cycle is a term that means how does it grow throughout the years? How does it develop? If you take the time to understand these things, you'll be much better off the next time you see a pest. In the introduction chapter in my book, Plant Science for Gardeners, I make that point. I wish gardeners would take the time to understand their plants. Understand how they grow. If you do that, you'll know how to grow just about anything. More importantly, in this case, if you learn about this plant and you understand how plants grow, you'll be able to control this plant so much easier because you'll understand its life cycle. So what is the life cycle of garlic mustard? Well, it's a biennial, and we actually grow a lot of those in our gardens, so it grows very similar. It starts as a seed, germinates the first year, and it tends to grow a rosette. A rosette is a plant that stays very close to the ground. It's not tall like this. The first year is just a little thing along the ground. It'll look something like this in late summer. In the second year, it grows tall, flowers, and makes seeds, and then it dies. It's a biennial. It's a 2-year plant. It dies in its second year. And that's how it's genetically programmed to grow. That's important to understand when we're trying to control this plant. It's actually a lot easier to control than a perennial that comes back year after year, because I know that this stem here will be dead at the end of the year. It dies naturally. It's interesting, I was just looking at this garlic mustard here, and a bee came and landed on it. Okay, this is an invasive plant, but it is good food for bees. Bees love this thing. And here we have to make a choice between the bee and our native plants. The choice is clear. Get rid of this thing, even if it feeds the bees. In North America, this plant only spreads by seeds. It doesn't spread by runners. So if we prevent it from making seeds, we won't have any more plants. But seeds are a funny thing. They can last many years in the ground. And it turns out that seed from this plant that dropped this year can germinate over the next 10 years. So when we stop having seeds formed, it's a 10-year process before they're all gone. 10 years seems like a long time, but with weeds, it's actually not that long. There are weeds around where the seeds will last 50 and 100 years. So 10 years is quite manageable. But these plants make a lot of seeds. They're part of the mustard family. They make small seeds, and they make lots of seeds, and that's how this plant spreads around. Here's some more insects coming to get nectar from this beautiful plant here. All right, so now you know something about the biology of the plant. Let's use that to control it. Because it's a biennial and it dies in its second year, there's no point in spraying these with a herbicide. They're going to die anyways. So there's a much easier way to kill these plants. And that is to simply pull them out of the ground. Let's have a closer look at this plant. Here's one I pulled out earlier. And you might be able to see that it has several stems coming up. And at the tip of each stem are flowers. Even lower down in the leaf axils, you get flowers coming. So it will flower all the way up the stem. But one thing I noticed from this plant is that once I pull it out of the ground, it doesn't have a very big root system. It's a biennial. There's no point in this plant making a huge root system to survive for years and years because it's a biennial. It's going to die anyways. So it makes a pretty small root system, and it's kind of S-shaped, or let's call it crooked. I don't really see the S on most of these. But what it means is that by the time it flowers, it's actually pretty easy to pull out of the ground. If you take the stem near the ground and pull gently, it generally comes out with the root. Not always. Sometimes it breaks off. If it comes out with the root, so it's a complete plant, I've removed that from here. If it's like this one where I left some of the root behind, that will still die. But if I take a plant and just break the top off, and I leave the bottom part in the ground, then it will still make side shoots, and those side shoots will flower. So this will flower later in the year. So that's no good. If we want to get rid of this plant, we have to get the root out when we pull it. Now, when is a good time to do this? Well, early in the spring, the plant is a little harder to identify. So what I like to do is wait until about mid-May in my Zone 5 area. And at that point, the plant is flowering. It's quite tall. It's very recognizable. One way to identify garlic mustard is from the smell. You can actually smell the garlic in here. Oh, it's bitter. It doesn't taste like garlic, but you can smell the garlic. It has these unique shaped leaves that are a limey green, and it's really easy to identify in the field. Here's a spot along the road where there's all kinds of these. If you see this plant once, you'll immediately identify it as garlic mustard. And this is a perfect time to get rid of the plant. We want to pull it before the flowers are able to make seeds. Mid-May in Zone 5 is perfect time to go out and pull all your garlic mustard. In fact, what I do on my garden, because I have 6 acres, I just wander the garden at this time of the year, and anything I find blooming like this, I pull out. And thank goodness I have very little garlic mustard on my property, but I find some every year. So you've got to do this every year. All right, so now you've pulled out your garlic mustard. Now what do? I'm going to give you 2 answers for this. I'm going to give you what the professionals say, and then I'll give you my opinion. What the professionals say is that these flowers will develop seeds so quickly that they will develop seeds even when this plant is laying on the ground. They suggest that you take the whole plant, put it in a garbage bag, and send it to the dump. Let's get rid of this plant. And I guess that's probably the best thing to do. I'm not convinced they're right. I don't think these flowers will make seeds. Now, I know with some weeds, they make seeds very quickly. So the dandelion, for instance, as soon as you see that yellow flower, the seeds are already pollinated and it's starting to make seeds. And so you get seeds even if you pull that yellow flower off and throw it on the ground. I don't think that's true of this plant. This is part of the brassica family or the mustard family, and it doesn't develop seeds that quickly. And I'm going to do a test this year to see how quickly this pulled plant will make seeds. But here's what I do. I pull them out of the ground, and then I nip off the flowers. Without a root system and without a stem with all those nutrients in there, this is not going to make seeds. And I feel quite comfortable throwing that on the ground. It's not going to make seeds. Now it does flower from lower down, so I might even cut that off and throw it on the ground. I mean, why throw away good plant nutrients when you can use this to compost your garden? So when I'm out pulling these, I gently pull these out, try to get as much of the root as possible. Then I nip off the top, throw it on the ground. I might even do this, but not usually, and throw that on the ground. Those are plant nutrients that are feeding my soil and making it better. I might as well get some use out of this weed. Why would you take this good organic matter and put it in a bag? As I said, I'm going to test this and see if these make seeds, but I don't think they will. And I'll post a video later in summer about this. If you want to follow the experts though, pull, put it in a bag, and take it to the dump. The trick to controlling garlic mustard is to go through your whole property and pull it as soon as you see it. Find out when it blooms in your particular area and go scouting for it. Not only in your garden, but in the woods nearby, down the street, every place you walk. Try to identify garlic mustard, and as soon as you see it anywhere, pull it out. If we all did that, we wouldn't have garlic mustard problem. If we don't do that, this is going to become a huge, huge problem. The take-home message in this video is that you have to understand plants. Learn how they grow. Learn their life cycle. Learn what makes them tick. And a really good way to do that, and I am biased in this, is to read my book, Plant Science for Gardeners. It gives you all that background information that will help you understand how plants grow. Once you understand how they grow, you'll be able to grow everything. I mean, I grow over 3,000 plants. When I get a new plant, do you think I research it to see how to grow it? No. I know how plants grow. I simply look at the plant and I can tell how it's going to grow. I know what it needs. I know how to water it. Now, I might look up to see how tall it gets or when it blooms. But as far as actually growing it, I don't need to look that up because I understand the basics. Have a look at my book, Plant Science for Gardeners, or have a look at some more videos. I've got hundreds of them right here.